Hello there, welcome to Venture Capital. I'm Katie Pilbeam. So, Russia is sanctioned again. I caught up with business leaders, international business leaders, to get their take here in Moscow. Plus, Gazprom's profits fell 41%. Ouch! Tim Kirby, he'll fill us in a little bit later on. But first of all, we'll get stuck in and talk about these sanctions then. So they're going to target the finance, energy and the defence sectors. Russian oil giants Rosneft, Transneft and Gazprom Neft, they are on the list, which means these companies are limited from raising money on the European markets. Sberbank, VTB and Gazprom Bank will now have the same problem getting hold of long-term loans in Europe. Arms producer Kalashnikov is also on the list, as is oil extraction services Russia needs for its Arctic energy projects. They'll be affected. So we're going to stick to the pure economics of it all and get market reaction from Naeem Aslan from AvaTrade. Naeem, what difference do these new sanctions make?
I think these sanctions smell very much like old sanctions. But there's one important thing in this sanction is that they have brought 3 oil companies, leaving out the gas companies. So they still haven't touched them because that is the weakest point, perhaps, for Europe to put any kind of sanctions on gas companies, given that we have weather on a doorstep which could completely bring this situation in a very, very volatile kind of a condition.
What happens if these companies can't get hold of this longer-term debt, which is what they can't do at the moment? They're prohibited from doing that. What happens then? How do they finance themselves?
I think, Katie, this is very much like a deja vu. Mr. Putin has already addressed this kind of a situation when we faced earlier. Basically, when he went to China and he signed up a massive gas deal with China. So the relationships with the Asian market, especially with China, they are very sweet. Okay, these companies can't raise debt in Europe, but we have an option to raise debt in Asia and in other markets. Because once they can't raise debt in European markets, that means that the US are going to follow this thing, and then they will put same sort of restrictions on these companies, so they won't be able to raise any debt in America, but they can raise debt in Asia, so that is okay. I'm not worried about that situation. What I am worried about is the retaliation. What kind of counter sanctions going to be coming from Mr. Putin? Is he going to ban the airspace? If that is the condition, we're talking about airplanes there. The entire sector, the entire industry, with all the planes and all the air industry is going to be heavily going to see a selling pressure. And then there are talks of some kind of car sanctions, any kind of imports. And then we are talking about Germany there, the growth engine of the Eurozone. Is that going to really happen? That's going to drive the growth even further lower. And then just to go back a little bit about this 3 companies where the new sanctions have been involved, they have actually also put sanctions on 2 major companies in France and Italy. Let's talk about France. France is already in higher unemployment and no growth at all. The same situation is taking place in Italy. So Draghi will have a very difficult time facing these sanctions, I will say.
And Naeem, I want to talk about Europe, because the interesting thing is, you're saying Russia can get its money from Asia, for example. But the thing is, Europe is saying these are reversible. Is that really feasible? Are they reversible? Is it the kind of situation where you can say one day, oh, you're sanctioned, a couple of days later, sorry, we changed our mind, you're being good now, we'll take them off?
I mean, Europe needs Russia. The relationship needs to come back together, that is for sure. 1 trillion euro is going to come to the market. 500 billion euro is coming in ABS securities and in other form of a quantitative easing, which they are saying that, okay, it's not a quantitative easing, but it is a quantitative easing. So are they going to reverse these sanctions? Yes. But is it going to be that easy? No, because there are a number of nations involved with a lot of different interests and a diverse kind of interest we are talking about right at this point.
I want to ask you about the Russian ruble, because it has taken an absolute battering in recent weeks. Now we're looking at an all-time low. What can we read into that?
Well, I wanted to first of all read into a positive aspect of that. If the Russian ruble is weak, that means the country export is going to be more attractive. Okay, yes, we have a sanctions in America on Russia. We have a sanctions by Europe on Russia again, but we have Asian markets open. So that's going to make export very attractive. That is one positive aspect of ruble going down, because that's what pretty much ECB is doing. They're trying to devalue the currency in order to stimulate the growth. Although in Russia, the sanctions going to eat into its flesh and then will have some sort of a negative impact. But there are positive aspects to that as well. And today we had a rate decision by Russian bank, the central bank, and they left the rate unchanged. But let's watch October 31st. That is going to be the key day if they are going to raise the interest rate to lift the currency back up.
Naeem, we'll leave it there. Really appreciate your thoughts. France were indeed